Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm Matt Lisle, and today is Friday, June 12th, 2020. It's day 10 of the Coffee with Coach Lisle show, where I help parents, coaches, and athletes around the world tackle the challenges of life and athletics. So thank you for tuning in this morning. Good morning to everybody. Good morning, Jason. Good morning, Wes. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It's great to see all these familiar faces again. Don, good morning. Just a reminder that today is the last day the Coffee with Coach Lisle show will be on Facebook Live, as we're moving to YouTube Live on Monday. So starting on Monday, June 15th, the show is going to be gone to youtube.com/Coach Lisle. So make sure you go over to YouTube, go to youtube.com/Coach Lisle, hit subscribe, hit that little bell button to get reminders. And as a reminder, every show that's been recorded so far also gets backed up onto YouTube. So if you miss a show and you would like to go back or watch a segment, you can catch it all on YouTube as well. So remember, starting Monday, June 15th, we're going to YouTube on Friday, Monday at 7 a.m. Excuse me. In yesterday's show, we talked about pay to play. And if you'd like to catch that replay again, you can catch it on YouTube. It was a really good show, good feedback from everybody. So good morning, everybody. Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Michael. Everybody, good morning, Tina. Thanks for tuning in. Good morning, Larry from Missouri. Thank you, guys. Good morning, George. Good morning, Melanie. Everybody, this is great. It's great to see all these familiar faces every morning. I appreciate a lot of you guys getting up with me and sharing this morning with me and sharing some coffee with me. So I will post the link again, youtube.com/Coach Lisle. I will post the link on Monday. I'll post it all throughout the weekend just to remind you how to get over to YouTube instead of Facebook. And as a reminder, something that we've been doing this last week and it's been going really well. We're trying to get to 300 likes on this episode, and we're trying to get to 75 shares. We've been averaging about 50 to 60 shares an episode, so again, on this Friday, if you're feeling good, share that episode. And if we get to over 50 shares, I'm going to send one lucky winner a signed copy of my book, Dear Coach. And I've sent out a bunch of them this week. Hopefully, everyone. Good morning, Heather. I appreciate you tuning in this morning. Happy birthday yesterday. Good morning, Brian. Everybody, good morning. Marina, good morning. Good to see you. My favorite Canadian. So good morning, everybody. Thank you. And if you're just tuning in, and we're just getting settled in, we're just getting started. I'm looking up at my scoreboard. My scoreboard shows 20 likes this morning. We're trying to get to 300 likes. Today's starting lineup. First, we're going to start off with a big question I've got for parents, a big would you rather question. Then I'm going to share a story of an unrealistic mom. And our main topic of the day is going to be about social media and recruiting and how the two of them mix and how to mix them well. As always, we'll do 10 minutes of Q&A at the end, so make sure you get your questions ready. It can be about recruiting and social media or anything under the sun that's family friendly. And then the final segment of the show, I just want to share a little bit of advice to coaches and parents and athletes to send you guys on your way for a great weekend. So the question of the day, for parents tuning in is a would you rather? And the question is, would you rather be a star of a bad team or an average player of an elite team? And I'll ask it one more time. Would you rather be the star of a bad team or an average player on an elite team? And I ask this because I've asked this question to recruits just to get their feeling. And I've had a lot of recruits say, I would rather ride the bench and play on the elite team than be a star and play every day on a bad team, and vice versa. So I'm curious to see what would you prefer, and what would you prefer for your kid? If you're thinking about your kid, would you rather them be a star on a bad team or an average or less than average player on an elite team? So that's the question of the morning. I want to hear what you guys think. Let's talk about that a little bit. Good morning to Lauren. Good morning, Chris. Good morning, Ruben. Good to see you guys. I appreciate it. So thanks for tuning in. I'm looking up at my scoreboard. You guys are hitting that like button well this morning. We got 43 already. So thank you very much. Enjoying my coffee and wishing I was at Disneyland right now. If you can see my Disneyland mug, it reopens on July 17th, and I know a lot of my family members are hoping to get in there soon. Larry says, in his would you rather, he says he would rather be an average player. There's more chance to grow. Doug says average. Iron sharpens iron. Jason says average on an elite team. Sarah also says average. Ruben says elite all the way. Charity says average on elite. A bad team will kill morale. So everyone has said average on an elite team. I think that's interesting. I would love to hear somebody give a different response. Again, I think as parents, I think it's a little bit more of a struggle. I think if I frame the question a little bit more around, hey, your kid can be an elite player on a terrible team and they end up getting a scholarship offer because they're such a good player, or they're an average player on an elite team and they don't get a scholarship offer, would you answer the question differently then? So, I'm very curious to see what you guys would think if it was framed in that way. Scott says he would like to be on a team with a lot of talent. The only way you get better is to get challenged by your own teammates in competition. I agree. Corey asks, would Greg Maddux be great in today's world where the strike zone doesn't include painting the black? Great question. We could maybe use that for our Q&A time. Carrie says, my daughter has been on both. She has lost her passion on the elite team. Back to poor team to see if it comes back. And that can be very possible. Sometimes the atmosphere and the team, if you're on an elite team and you're not getting the playing time, and it can be demoralizing. And so some kids, they want to get back to that. So that's good. I was very curious to see kind of what you guys thought about. If you're just tuning in, the question of the morning to start us off was, would you rather be the star of a bad team or a bench player or an average player on an elite team? So far, it's been around 90% of the people have said they would rather be an average player on an elite team than a star on a bad team. I kind of question that a little bit, but I believe you guys. Let's see. We'll check on this for just another second. Average. The elite players will enhance my skills. Believe that you play to the level you are around. Mike says either, as long as it's a group of people I want to be with. I wouldn't want to be the star in a bad team or an elite team full of people I don't want to be around. I hear that. That definitely makes sense. Jennifer says we have been a part of all three in the last 3 years. There are positives and negatives to all three. My son has learned the most from coaches and teammates who work hard together. It's all about the group. Don says, I think being the best player on a team, not so good. This would be a perfect scenario because you can bring up morale. That's great. And Scott says, if a player loses passion, it has to do with coaching as well. Coaches need to be honest up front and give opportunity to all players. Then it is earned from there. Need clear expectations. I totally agree with that. Alexander says, star player. I'd rather be on the field than on the pine. I think push comes to shove. I think a lot of people would probably choose the two. If I had asked the question, would you rather be a bench player on a national championship softball team or a star on a team that didn't make the playoffs, be an All-American, again, I think the conversation would be pretty interesting. So I appreciate you guys tuning in on that. Again, a great would you rather for parents. If you're just tuning in, we're trying to get to 300 likes today. We're trying to get to 75 shares. So hit that like button if you're just waking up and tuning in with us this morning. I appreciate you sharing your Friday morning with me and doing that. So great would you rather question this morning. A lot of great responses. I appreciate that. Anthony says the 90% to say or the 100% will complain when their kid isn't getting playing time. That's funny, and I don't disagree with that entirely either. So thank you guys for sharing that. Again, for those of you who are tuning in a little bit, one of the things that has happened in the last week is the Coffee with Coach Lisle show has gone onto Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Really excited about that. So if you don't like to tune in at 7 a.m. and you don't have Facebook, or you don't like watching this on Facebook and looking at my face, and you'd rather listen, you can catch this show in the car later on in the day. All of the episodes have been uploaded to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just search for Coffee with Coach Lisle on Apple Podcasts, and you can find past episodes on there as well. I know a lot of you talked about wanting to listen to it on podcast form, and it is now in podcast on Spotify and on as well as Apple Podcasts. So thank you guys. So let's get into today's Dear Coach segment. Okay, and if you've been following along the last 2 weeks, you know that I read a story out of my book, Dear Coach, that came out last June. Thank you again to everyone who has purchased it in the last couple weeks. It's been soaring up the bestsellers list. It's in the top 15 now of sports books on Kindle. It's been going up and up, and I appreciate you guys. And again, as a reminder, 100% of the proceeds of this book go to an organization called The Base. You can look at thebase.org, and it's a great organization helping youth urban academies in Chicago and Boston and some other places, and 100% of the proceeds of this book go to it. If you did buy this book and you liked it, please go leave a 5-star review for it. That definitely helps it as well. So thank you again for everybody who has done that. And again, every morning I read a little story from this book. It's some really fun, just crazy parent emails, and if you haven't heard of the book at all, it's a book called Dear Coach: Real Emails from Parents Behaving Badly on the Field, at Home, and Behind Their Computer Screens. And they're emails and stories that have been shared to me. They've been shared some of my own stories, and the names have been changed to protect the innocent a little bit, or maybe they're not so innocent. So thank you everybody who has done that. So let's get into today's Dear Coach story, okay? Today's Dear Coach story is an email I received here. It says, to Coach Lisle from bubbleburster@yahoo.com. Subject, unrealistic expectations. Dear Coach Lisle, I once had a parent request a meeting with me and her high school son. He was a junior. I could tell she was upset about playing time. Her son wasn't one of the better players, but he was a good kid, so I agreed to the meeting. When the meeting started, I asked the athlete what his goals were for the season and life after high school. He proudly stated that he was interested in computer science and programming for video games. His mother angrily swung her head at him and said, "Computer science? Oh, hell no. What about our plans for the major leagues?" The student got embarrassed and said, "Well, I need a backup plan, Mom." She replied, "Not when you're as great of a player as you are." You can guess how the rest of the meeting went. Sincerely, Coach Bubbleburster. And I'm sure some of you have had a parent meeting similar to that, possibly. A great comic for this email was drawn by Wes Molbash. Make sure to check him out at Wes Molbash. And the email says, the drawing says, "I've told him to stop focusing on his studies altogether. With an arm like his, who needs academics? Am I right or am I right?" And so just a really funny story. And again, if you've ever coached high school or other sports, I'm sure you've had similar conversations like that about parents who just have very high expectations of their kids and their beliefs in that. So I thought that was pretty funny, a story there. I'm sure some of you can resonate with something like that. Okay. So that's our Dear Coach segment of the day. Again, if we get to over 50 shares today, I'm going to send a random winner a signed copy of the book, Dear Coach. If not, check it out on Amazon. And I appreciate everybody who has done that as well and has purchased it. A lot of great feedback from those who have, and I appreciate you doing that very much. So let's get into today's main topic. Today's main topic, I want to talk about social media and recruiting. So social media recruiting, how it can help you and how it can hurt you, okay? And so I really want to talk about, all the things that are involved with social media and recruiting for especially for high school kids. So let's get into it right now. The thing I want student athletes to understand is that someone is always watching. Someone is always watching you, whether you know it or not. I watched the Bruce Lee documentary, 30 for 30 on ESPN last night, and it was an incredible story about his life. And one of the things that was incredible about it was that he was doing a kung fu demonstration one day and just happened to have a Hollywood person in the stands, totally unrelated to looking at him, saw him, was amazed at him, and it kind of took off for his Hollywood career. So just remember, there's always coaches watching. Coaches are always watching. Think of the Roz scene in Monsters, Inc., always watching Wazowski. So you have to remember that you may not think that tweet is being seen by many people, but if a coach is interested in your life, they're interested in you at all, they're following you closely to see how you behave on social media. So one piece of advice I have for you, if you're a student athlete listening, and parents, if you have student athletes and they're sleeping in this morning, they can't catch the show at 7 a.m., pass this on to them. One piece of advice I give is to keep your accounts public. Keep that account public so that coaches can see. Coaches want to be able to see what your kids kind of are up to, in the sense that a lot of times coaches think that kids are hiding something if all their accounts are private. It doesn't really give the coaches a good glimpse at what their lives are like. And so that's one piece of advice that I give. And I think I want to talk about the things that help kids, and I want to talk about the things that hurt kids. So let's talk about the hurting things first. And I think the hurting thing's pretty obvious. I think that posting inappropriate content is one of the fastest ways to get off a coach's list. Now, having said that, each coach is different. Posting really inappropriate things that are sexist, racist, really profane, that almost always gets you off a coach's list. I mean, that's a good way to just completely kill your chances of moving on to the next level. But coaches know, I'm a parent. I got 5 kids and 2 grandkids. Coaches know that kids are still kids, and they've got to have some grace when it comes to kids and their immaturity and their comments. But it's something to be really, really aware of. So something I want to just point out, and I found a couple tweets from some coaches that I know, and I wanted to read a couple of them. This is a coach from Penn State. He says, "I dropped another prospect this morning due to his social media presence. Actually glad I got to see the real person before we offered him." Duke, coach, one of the coaches in a different sport, says, "Our jobs depend on the young men that we recruit. Your social media pages say a lot about your character, discipline, and common sense." SMU coach says, "I came across an awful Twitter account today. Shame was the kid was a really good player. On to the next one." So get a clue. And I can't tell you how much, and I know you've all heard stories of scholarships being pulled because of social media behavior. And I can tell you, I've scratched off a few names on my list before for some really bad stuff. And so, be really careful and really smart. I found another coach's tweet here. Coach Mosley says, "I just dropped another recruit for profanity and acting like a fool on social media. If you can't be trusted on Twitter, how can you be trusted with our logo on your chest? Hashtag character counts." So I thought that was really good advice. And last one, Coach Singleton said, "I had to unfollow and stop recruiting a young man this evening. Still amazed by what recruits tweet and retweet. College coaches are watching." I just think that was a really good point. And again, those are the negative things. Those are how social media and recruiting can hurt you. So parents, I can't tell you enough to be involved with your kids' social media. Know what's going on with it. Right now, the big one is TikTok. Everyone's hanging out on TikTok, and so the kids are trying to hide from the parents. Right? They had Facebook, then they went to Instagram and Twitter, and then Instagram, and Snapchat, and now TikTok, and the kids will continue to hide from the parents with different social media platforms, but make sure you know what's going on with them, what they're posting, and I can't tell you how many times. Again, I just showed you a bunch of recruits, and that's just a sampling of coaches that have canceled or moved scholarships or stopped recruiting a kid because of that. So if you're just tuning in, we're talking about social media and recruiting. The things, how they can help you, how they can hurt you. We just got done talking about hurting you. If you're just tuning in, hit that like button, hit that share button. My scoreboard shows 164 likes this morning. We're trying to get to 300, so make sure you hit that like button. And hopefully you're enjoying some coffee with me this morning. And I can tell you, I can tell you more and more stories. Here's a story I wanted to read about. It says, in 2017, a Virginia high school running back started a YouTube channel on which he frequently used foul language. He also posted a video of himself doing some illegal stuff. The player, who was committed to playing football at Old Dominion, received a phone call after several of his inappropriate videos went viral and learned the school had pulled his scholarship as a result. So again, that's the hurting part. That's one of the things you can do that can really hurt you. Secondly, one of the things I see a lot, the mistake that I see a lot of kids doing is I see a lot of kids, one of the mistakes they're making especially on Twitter, is they're tagging a bunch of coaches in their post. And so for me, it's funny because I get tagged in a lot of those posts. I've got a lot of social media followers. I think I have about 900,000 total. So I get tagged in a lot of Twitter posts from recruits. And sometimes it can be different sports, football, basketball. I've been tagged in all kinds of recruit videos. I can tell you that it hurts you to do that a little bit unless you're not going to go to any other schools that you tagged. For example, if I am a coach at the University of Oregon and you tagged every school in the Pac-12 except for me in this tag, to me it's saying, okay, I'm interested in all these schools, but I'm not interested in you. And I can, whether it's a small school, big school, mid-major, D2, D3, if you're posting recruiting videos and you tag these coaches, and you only tag those coaches, again, it sends a message to a lot of other coaches in the country who might have been interested in you and might offer you if you don't tag them. And then also, it can be really annoying too. I know a lot of coaches can get tagged in a bunch of videos, and it's kind of just, they feel like they're getting spammed by you tagging them. So it can hurt you to tag unless you're really only interested in that school. If it's your dream school, or you have a couple dream schools and you're not interested in going to any other schools, feel free to tag those coaches in the recruit videos. You're going to risk feeling like you're spamming them. It could be hurting you a little bit, but if those are the only schools you're really interested in going to, that's one of the ways you can do it. So those are some of the things that I can tell you that really hurt student athletes in the recruiting process. And as a parent, my advice on that is to get as involved as you can in overseeing those things and helping them with that. Kids are still kids, and so they could definitely use some help in that area. So let me give you some tips and guidelines on how to make it better, how to utilize it, how to make it your tool. Social media to me and recruiting can be a huge tool for student athletes, especially ones that feel like they're being overlooked. It can be a really good tool, especially in 2020 with COVID and all the recruiting. We've got a dead period, which means we can't go out recruiting through July right now. So if that's you, social media is where you want to be, because all the coaches are hanging out on social media. That's a good time. The coaches are at home. They have their eyes on social media way more than ever. So I want to give you some tips and some guidelines on how to use social media better. So here's the thing. It may be a college coach's first impression of you. So be really smart about how you present yourself on social media. It could be a coach's very first impression of you. And so there's an old rule: think twice, post once. If you don't know, there's an NFL star named J.J. Watt. He's an incredible guy, incredible athlete, obviously. And he says, read every tweet about 95 times before you send it. Look at every Instagram post about 95 times before you send it. A reputation takes years and years and years to build, and it takes one press of a button to ruin it. So think about that. Make sure you read what you're going to write before you post it. Old rule: think once, think twice, post once. And I'll tell you guys some advice. If you do something stupid and you realize it later, delete it and own it. Okay, take ownership of it. I'm not saying to make a big statement like, hey, everybody, I made this stupid comment. Okay, don't draw attention to it. But if someone calls you out on it, someone saw that tweet before they did, and they call you out on something that you did that was dumb, just own it and apologize. Say, yeah, you're right, that was dumb of me, I apologize, and really own it. So some other tips I want to give you guys. Number one, know the rules of the NCAA. In softball and lacrosse, coaches aren't even allowed to talk to you until your junior year. So sometimes I get kids who DM me, send me emails, and they're freshmen and they don't understand that I can't respond to those. A lot of coaches can't respond to you. So know the rules, the NCAA rules regarding social media and contact. Again, like in softball, lacrosse, and some other sports, they can't even talk to you until your junior year. So don't expect to hear back from coaches. Now, if you're getting recruited by an NAIA coach, I coach NAIA. There's no rules on that. We can talk to you as a freshman. We can talk to you anytime we want. And so there's different rules for NAIA. NAIA knows some of those rules. One of the rules that most NCAA levels have that you need to know is that we have a rule called you can click but you can't type. And what that means is that a coach can they can retweet, they can like what you post, but they can't comment on that. So if you tweet out something and you say, "Hey, coach, what do you think about this?" Understand that if you're not a junior, a senior, you're not at the age that is able to do that. Coaches can't respond to you. So I know some recruits get frustrated that their coaches don't respond. Know that the NCAA rules don't allow that. And then you guys need to understand that college coaches are using social media way more than before for recruiting. It's a huge tool right now. So make really good videos. Don't post recruiting videos that are really bad. Really focus on really good content. And then use data whenever possible. Again, in baseball and softball, we used exit velocity and pitching speeds. The more data you can use in your videos and share, it gets our attention. Again, if you're a baseball player and you can throw 97 miles an hour and you can prove that in a recruiting video, I'm telling you right now, you're going to get a lot of attention from that. But a lot of times video doesn't show speed. Same thing in softball. If you can throw, if you're a pitcher and you can throw 65 and you don't post that and you don't prove it, when I watch that video, it's kind of hard. Maybe she's throwing hard. I can't really tell. But if it's got the number on there and it's got maybe a proof of a radar gun, that can really get some attention. So use that. And there's a lot of apps out there. Pocket Radar has an app that allows you to put miles per hour on things. And so there's a lot of tools out there. Again, like if you're a football player, your 40 time, different things that you can do, your bench press, any kind of data you have to share with coaches is really good. The next thing I would share with you guys is that you need to follow and you need to like the programs you're interested in. So, if you're really interested in a handful of schools, make sure you follow that team's page. Make sure you like stuff a lot. Again, the more connected you are with that program, the more your name comes up. I can tell you right now that I have a lot of kids that follow me that they post a lot and they things. I start recognizing their name. The same thing with this show. This is episode 10 of the show, and now I can recognize 10 to 15 names that have tuned in every single morning and said good morning. And so we have this great connection. There's a lot of people on the show that I see your names and I'm like, oh man, good to see this guy again, or good to see this mom on here. And so just know that the more you can follow and like the programs, that really helps you as well. And then I would say DMs are fine. Slide into the DMs. Just know that you might not get a response because of the rules, but it can be a good way if you don't spam them and do it all the time. It can be a good way to get a coach's attention. If they're not getting DM'd all the time, they're not getting blasted all the time, but it's a good way to get into that. So as much as you can, I think it's a really good way to DM them. Just be smart about it, what you say, and how often you do it. Don't be a spammer. And I think that can be a really helpful way. So hopefully those are some tips that I think would really help you guys with that. I would say one of a couple other final tips I would give you is, use it to humbly brag about your accomplishments. If you made honor roll or all-state or got an award, share it about it on social media, but be smart about how you talk about it. Okay, so make sure watch how people accept awards. It's interesting to see if they can accept them humbly, can share about it humbly. So think of your best humble brags when it comes to that. And again, share these things because you might have a coach that's following you. It's a high academic school, and you say, I got a 4.0, I'm valedictorian, honor roll. This can give the attention to some coaches as well. And then lastly, show your personality off. Don't just be stoic and just share facts and videos. Coaches they don't want to see just your accomplishments. We want to see your best self. We want to see your personality. We want to see what you're like, because you got to understand, coaches, when they recruit you and you come to our program, you're a part of their family. They're going to spend 40 hours a week with you. So make sure that in that time that you spend posting, make sure you share your personality. Coaches want to see what that's like, what kind of person you're like, and really show that off. So, and I can tell you, if used the right way, especially in this time, 2020, of social distancing and recruiting dead periods across the country, social media can be a really good way for you to get on the coach's radar. It's going to be a really good way. And you could even land a scholarship offer from social media. I can tell you right now, I know a lot of examples of kids right now who are getting scholarship offers off of social media because of the stuff they're posting, because of the things. So that's really good, and I really appreciate that. So we're going to move into our Q&A time next. We got about 10 minutes for Q&A, and I'll put the timer on the scoreboard here in a minute. If you're just tuning in, we just finished up our segment about social media and recruiting. If you missed it, you can catch it later on youtube.com/Coach Lisle or on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're just tuning in, I'm looking up at the scoreboard. I see 213 likes. So hit that like button. Hit that share button if you really enjoy the show. Share it out to people that follow you and are connected with you. Appreciate that. And start thinking about what questions you might have. Questions about social media and recruiting. It can be anything, obviously, that's family friendly. And any questions you might have about coaching, parenting, or anything, feel free to send them my way. Okay, so I want to get into our Q&A time. Let's get into our Q&A time this morning. Let's get that scoreboard going, that countdown. So I'm going to hit the scoreboard right now and get to our questions. We got 10 minutes for Q&A this morning. Let's see what we've got here. Corey asks, how about the rapid decline in interest for the game? What are or have you shared some solutions to re-engaging our youth? I know having no baseball in 2020 is not going to help. To me, the biggest problem with baseball growth in this country is that baseball is not fun anymore. When I go to my kids' youth practices at 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, you've got 1 or 2 coaches and you've got 12 kids. 1 kid is participating and 9 or 10 kids are standing around. In soccer and other sports, everybody's engaged, everybody's moving around. It's way more fun. So our coaches have got to do a better job of engaging and having more fun doing it. It's so structured. It's so boring. Baseball is one of my favorite sports. I've been involved with it for over 35 years, 37 years, however long it's been. And it's boring. So the way to engage kids to like baseball more is to make it more fun, engage with them in the sense of having really fun practices. To me, that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the game. And also, we talked about it yesterday, pay to play. We are eliminating so many low-income kids across the country by making baseball and softball so expensive. So to me, that would be one of the biggest issues that I see. Let's see, what questions do we have this morning? Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Ashley asks, can you clarify a little bit on the junior rule? Can it start as soon as their sophomore year is done? I think it's either August 1st or September 1st. Like I said, the rules always change, and I apologize. I should know the answer to that. I'm pretty sure it's September 1st of their junior year. Could be August 1st. I can't believe I'm blanking on that right now. So, but it doesn't start until after the summer of their sophomore year. And again, this is softball, lacrosse. Other sports have different rules, but like in softball, yeah, you can't talk to them at all. You can't talk about recruiting. Even if they come on campus as a sophomore, come to camp, we cannot talk to you at all about that. It's really tough. Pablo asks, with all the headhunter recruiters for cash out there, how can one wave through them? Or is there a directory out there that one can use to go around them? I can tell you that's tough. There are a lot of recruiting services out there. I would tell you that NCSA, NSR, those are 2 in my head that I know that are pretty good. I'm sure there's a lot of others out there. I can tell you that I've never really used them before. I can tell you that that the higher Division I schools don't utilize those services very often. Sometimes they do. It's just not very common. I would say that as a Division II coach, Division III, NAIA, they utilize them a lot more than any other level. That doesn't mean the other levels don't use them. They just utilize them a lot more. And I would say, to me, yeah, you got to do some homework on these services and the person that's helping them. Find out. I get some testimonials from other parents. If they say, I helped this kid and this kid and this kid, make sure it's actually true, that they actually helped them. And so do your homework as much as you can regarding that. Brianna asks, how often should kids post clips of workouts, practice highlights, 2 to 3 times a week, more or less? I can't imagine posting more than 1 a week unless you have a really good strategy around, why you're posting. Coaches don't really want to see every workout you've done, but they do want to see highlights. They do want to see your best stuff as well. So make sure that stuff you do share is short. I can tell you in my coaching days, when someone sends me a 5 or 6 minute recruiting video of all these things, I don't care. As the hitting coach, or I fast forward to the 30 seconds I want to see their swing, and so music and intro and all these things is just fluff. Get right into the good stuff. Wow me early. So wow coaches early. And that first 30 seconds that you talk or you share video, make sure that first 30 seconds gets my attention. Wes says, I run my son's Instagram account. He doesn't even know how it exists. Post videos, results, donation returns. And I can tell you, I know some parents are doing that out there. I can see parents doing that. Someone asks, what's the benefit of NCSA, which is a recruiting service? Would you recommend creating a player profile? And again, I can tell you NSR, NCSA, I don't know a ton about those organizations other than they can help athletes. The profiles can help them. Again, as a college coach who doesn't have a lot of resources, a lower budget, and in 2020 you can't go out recruiting. Lower level schools, Division II, Division III, NAIA, and some Division I schools, they will go to these places and look through profiles and try to find, some hidden gems in there. So I do think there's value in there. There's always value in putting your videos out there, YouTube, profiles. The more you can put out, there is definitely value in that. Ruben asked, my daughter's going into her senior year. Should we be worried about her not being committed yet? Oh, man, what a great question. And I think it's a long answer that I'll try to give in 30 seconds, is that parents, do not compare yourself to other kids. Do not freak out about what other kids have. I can tell you so many stories. The parents I know that were on teams where the entire team, freshmen were committed, and other parents were freaking out that their kids weren't committed by their sophomore years. And then senior year, they still hadn't got committed. And some of these kids have gone to SEC, Pac-12, big-time schools. Do not panic at all, okay? Talent will always rise. Talent will always be seen, and you never know who's watching. So do not panic, and do not compare yourself to what other kids are doing. If my son is a senior, uncommitted, not a lot of prospects, I want to figure out why. Do we need to focus a lot more on development and getting better? Do we need to cast a wider net? I will be more involved in the process, but I'm not going to freak out and worry about what everybody else is doing. So to me, that's the one thing I would not do. Missy asks, how often do you think a player gets recruited that takes a year off between high school and college, either due to injury, etc.? Missy, I'll tell you, if they are talented, coaches don't care. Okay, if you come to me and say, you know what, I sat out a year between my high school senior year and my freshman college year, and I had this injury, and you prove that you're healthy and you can help my team win, I'm totally fine with that. So you got to understand, coaches are going to take chances on kids who have talent. That's just the bottom line. Clara asks, if recruiting services are not used, what is another way to reach out to coaches effectively? Now, let me clarify. They are being used. A lot of coaches use them. I'm just telling you that the highest levels, the high Division I schools, they don't utilize them as much. Okay, so don't get me wrong. They are used by a lot of coaches in the country, at a lot of levels, and there's a lot of value to them if it's the right one. But for me, the best way to do it, especially if I didn't have a budget, again, is to create some really good video, highlights of practice and games, share it on social media, send it to the coaches that you're really interested in, DM them, say, hey, coach, I really want to come to your school. It's one of my top programs. Here's a video of me, highlights videos, and would you take a look at it? And that's, to me, the best way to do it. Daryl, I talked about tags or no tags. I say no tags. I think that it tells a lot of coaches that are not tagged, I'm not interested in your school, and it can be frustrating to them. If you're only interested in the schools that you tag, it's fine. Just be very careful about doing it. If you're tagging me every single week in a tag, it gets annoying and it feels like spam. So be careful about how often you do that. Scott asks, going into end of middle school, freshman year of high school, isn't it? Agreed. Rick asks, what about going to a junior college? What is a good strategy for picking up the recruiting after 2 years? I highly recommend junior college for a lot of kids out there, whether it's finances, needing to develop a little bit more. I have nothing against junior college, and I know a lot of coaches that recruit really well from junior college. The best way to do to do some research is go to some of the schools that you are interested in going to and look at their roster and see how many JC kids they have on their roster. If you see a ton of them, that tells you that a coach really does a lot of recruiting there. And when you reach out to junior colleges, see how often their kids move on to the next level. Scott asks, going into the last year of middle school and first year of high school, isn't the mental part of the game most important? Physical talent is, of course, very important, But if you're not solid mentally, you can't produce or get better physically. I agree with that. I would say, the mental side, the physical side. I think it's just the whole thing is a package. You've got to have skills. You got to be able to deal with adversity. You've got to be able to be, mentally tough. So to me, those are things. The last question of the day that we're going to get to. Anybody have the last question? Oh, looks like we're good. So Diana says softball has a new tool in Athletes Go Live, watching or recording live competition. Do you forecast this will become a valuable option for recruiting? Again, I agree. Yes, the more options that there is for going live, tournaments that are streaming, I think that's really, really good. So to me, that was I think it's going to be something that coaches use a lot more. So that's great. So today, as we wrap up Q Day, I want to share some advice this morning that I think can help all the coaches out there, whether you coach T-ball or high school or college. I want to read you guys a tweet that really resonates with me right now. And as you read this tweet, though, remember the rules around social media, social gathering, social distancing, all the rules of COVID. But it hopefully it holds true more as the years go on. And my tweet says, coaches, no matter how big your roster is, make it a point at each practice to connect with each athlete with a simple high five, a handshake, a hug, etc. Checking in with them. It gives kids a chance to check in, even if it's just a hi or a quick one-liner. It instantly establishes connection and engagement. So that's my advice of the day to all coaches, no matter what age. I can tell you that throughout the years, I look back as myself as a coach, and I can't imagine how many practices that I went to coaching, no matter what level it was, and never saying hello to a player. Just getting right into practice, getting throughout it, telling the player what to do in a practice. I'm not talking about ignoring them, but there are times I realized I didn't even check in with them. I didn't say hello. So get to practice 10 minutes early, hopefully a half hour early or whatever time you get there for practice. I know a lot of coaches get there a lot earlier. And as players arrive, check in with them. Hey, how are you doing, man? Good to see you. Checking in with them. How are you doing? How was school today? It completely changes practice for that day. And you get to see what players might be struggling with something that day. Sometimes you get athletes that are having a bad day. So check in with them every day before practice, before we get started, no matter how big your roster is. If you have a big roster, you coach football, it can be a simple hi, like I said, pat on the shoulder, pat on the helmet. Hey, how's it going? High five, elbow bump right now. But check in with your players as you do it. So, and remember, if you want to check in with me, if you want to get more and connect with me more, you can connect with me on YouTube at Coach Lisle. You can follow me on Instagram at Coach Lisle, Facebook at Coach Lisle, and Twitter at Coach Lisle. If you want to connect with me there. And remember, today was the last episode of Coffee with Coach Lisle on Facebook Live. Starting Monday, we're moving to YouTube Live. So youtube.com/Coach Lisle. Head over there as soon as this show's over. Hit subscribe. Click that bell button to get notifications to remind you. I had a lot of fun today, a lot of great feedback. I appreciate everybody tuning in, providing some great questions and feedback. I hope everyone has a great and safe weekend. But now it's time to say goodbye. I'll see you again on Monday. Same time, but different place. So now go out, win the day, and win the weekend. Thanks, everybody.